Prison officers are threatening to leave the prisons unmanned and walk off the job, arising out of the murder of Prison Officer Darren Francis. Prison Officers Association leader Ceron Richards was visibly upset during a media conference today. Wason has more.
Officers want to leave this job. We ready to leave. Dr. Keith Rowley, we ready to leave. Bring you and your cabinet and come and man that prison. Come and man the prison, you and the cabinet.
Ceron Richards has had enough. He says the government does not care about the prison officers and adds, in fact, a truck carrying cigarettes is more valuable to the government than the lives of prison officers.
They robbed a cigarette truck in Trinidad, and within minutes, persons were brought to justice.
Calling the country a terrorist state, he says the interest of businessmen is more important than human life. The media conference was emotional as the association tried coming to grips with the second officer killed within 2 weeks and fifth for the year.
Officers are being killed with impunity. Killed with impunity in this country, and we still have to wait for laws to arm officers. We still have to wait for security, safety and security measures to be put in place.
In closing, he called on Commissioner of Police Gary Griffith to say what was going on with certain measures that had been talked about.
Gary Griffith talked about the task force. What is the task force? Where's the pushback? Where's the pushback? Man, to hell with the state and to hell with the prison service. They don't care about us. They don't care about us. They don't care about us. Right? A cigarette truck are more valued than prison officers' lives. To hell with them. To hell with them. Right? That is the end of this press conference.
Wason, TTT News.
Murdered Prisons Officer Darren Francis has been described as an exemplary officer who will be missed by the prison service and inmates at the maximum security prison in Aruca. Acting Assistant Commissioner of Prison Service Deopasad Ramuta says his death is a great loss to prisons officer. Karen Kozier-Phillip has more.
Prisons Officer Darren Francis was shot at just after 4 a.m. outside his home in Hindustan Village, 6th Company, New Grant, while getting into his car to leave for work. Neighbors reported hearing 4 explosions and someone screaming. Francis's body was found at the side of the house. He was shot in the head. Francis, a Prison Officer 1, was attached to the radio unit at the maximum security prison in Aruca. The Acting Assistant Commissioner of Prisons described Francis as forthright and old school.
Well, the interaction he did was all in the line of restorative justice. I am sure the inmates who work with him and with us would be as hurt as what happened as the family members. I am sure of that. Because we have about 7 inmates who work side by side with him and other officers. And they are our model inmates.
Acting Assistant Commissioner Ramuta said as far as he knew, there were no threats to Francis's life. He said just as citizens are fearful of the crime splurge across Trinidad and Tobago, prisons officers are fearful for their lives.
The short answer is yes, but that fearful doesn't prevent you from doing your job. You have to find your strength from your God, from your family and so on to keep doing what you have to do. So we are all victims in this whole thing. Prison officers are unfairly targeted. It's an unpleasant job, but somebody has to do it.
He refused to comment on speculation that this latest killing is connected to corrupt practices in the prisons. Earlier this week, there were reports that prisons officers were threatened. If the cell phones of prisoners were taken away, officers would be murdered. Francis's murder comes 3 weeks after head of the maximum security prison, Superintendent Wayne Jackson, was gunned down in the yard of his Malabar home. Karen Kozier-Phillip, TTT News.
Meanwhile, Minister of National Security Stuart Young says all arms of national security stand together and support each other in the fight against the criminal element. Commenting on the death of prison officer Darren Smith, who was gunned down outside his home early this morning, Minister Young said, "It is with a deep sense of sadness that I offer my sympathy and condolences to Prison Officer 1 Darren Francis's family, friends and colleagues. Officer Francis was senselessly killed on his way to work this morning, end quote. Minister Young said the government, and in particular the National Security Ministry, remains committed to the men and women employed in the prison service. He said there are a number of initiatives aimed at increasing the safety and security of prison officers. The National Security Minister will meet with prisons officers next Tuesday to address their concerns.